Got it.
Yeah, that's a good disclaimer
Mhm.
that the episode's going live. Okay, now I'm gonna mute that. Okay, grab this. Okay, publish that. Just got to verify that it is actually working so that folks can refresh the page and they'll be live. Let's see. Oh yeah, that looks good. All right, now how do I do it so that, okay, it is in that mode. So Dr. Okay, I'm here. I'm here. This is Dr. Moshe Daniel Block. We are on NDs for Truth here, episode 2 of season 2. We are looking at the situation of the colleges. Basically, I work with students from various colleges in naturopathic medicine profession, and I began to see a trend of PTSD, trauma, exhaustion, and an aversion to practice, and not just an aversion to practice, but also in some cases a lack of confidence to practice, a feeling of deficiency in the knowledge. And so I felt inspired to make a short video about that, and I published it online. I published it on Facebook, and I got quite an amazing response to that. Many doctors came forward, sharing their support of these ideas and sharing their stories about how they were traumatized in different ways. In other words, a great unhealth has sort of come over the profession. I think naturopathic medicine has always struggled with some difficulties in our growth. It was like before the Flexner report, we were, I would say, a stronger profession. Maybe that's not totally accurate, but at least historically, there wasn't as much of this sort of strong opposition to what we do by mainstream thinking. And so when we went underground, we're almost completely decimated after the Flexner report. Historically, it's kind of been an uphill battle to get back going. But as I've had the opportunity now to receive over 30 results of the surveys that have been filled in from naturopathic doctors, most recently as graduated in 2022, all the way to 1981. And I'm hoping to get some that were even in before that. But certainly these were some of the most recent releases, some of the earliest times that people were graduating. So it's been fascinating to actually witness and to look at some of this data. I'm very excited to share it with everybody. So welcome, Sierra. I'm glad to have you here. And I also wanted to just welcome Dr. Eve-Marie Lucerne and Dr. Joyce Stevens. So thank you for being here, and thank you, Sierra, for being here. Sierra, you're also a naturopathic doctor?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So welcome. And I will invite you to chime in whenever you want. You could just unmute yourself. If you want to chime in, you want to say something, you want to make a comment, please do. And I might volunteer you or ask you if you want to tell something about a story or what have you. I've prepared a PowerPoint presentation with just some of the distillation of some of the initial information that has come in. And it is pretty eye-opening. You can really see, and some of it really makes sense for how our experience has been. In other words, I've taught around North America at the different colleges. I've been teaching my course, holistic counseling, and I always ask students how it's going. You get a pulse for the different colleges, and so a lot of the responses that I've had have been from it's kind of supported my feeling. However, we're all very different people, and different people get different things from the program. So there, in the last few responses of the survey, there were some very enthusiastic, very positive experiences that people had. I'd say of the 28 that I've used for data, about two have been very positive in the last 5 years. Before that, there was a lot more positive experiences. Even my experience going to CCNM in 2000 was, it was frustrating for different reasons, but it was lovely. I did try to quit 3 times, mind you, because of that frustration. But I didn't manage to haul myself back into the program to finish, because I'm idealistic, and I love our profession. I love natural medicine. I love being a naturopathic doctor. And that's why I'm passionate, and I remain hopeful that perhaps something can be done when we do take a look at one of this, we're, as naturopathic doctors, you want to tolle causam, you want to treat the cause of illness. Well, there's an illness in the profession, and the illness comes largely through the colleges, and that's what we're here to talk about tonight. So welcome all. Thank you for being here. Let's give a start over here to this PowerPoint presentation, and I'm going to just I'm going to share it here, and I'm going to. Can you all see this all right? Can you see it says initial survey results? Good. I'm going to leave it as not as a slideshow, because my controls in Zoom become a little wonky when I change that into a slideshow. So these are the initial survey results, and initial survey results in some ways might be a little bit too soon, because there's great variations in individuality. But certainly we can derive some things from it. And I have shared some of the comments. So there were some like 1 to 10 answers in the survey, and then there are some comments. And we could talk about this. I'd also love to hear your own comments about these things. So here's our different campuses of naturopathic medicine. We see here, this is a new one. This came from the one of the naturopathic organizations in the United States. I'm not sure which it was, AANP perhaps. I forget. I apologize for that. But here we have the Canadian College of Naturopathic Medicine, and now the new name for the Boucher campus in Vancouver is the Canadian College of Naturopathic Medicine, Boucher campus. So I'm not in favor of that merger. I don't think it bodes well for the profession in Canada, because what's coming out of Canadian College of Naturopathic Medicine is a lot of diversion away from the naturopathic principles, fear-based teaching, fear-based college, towing the line of the mandates of vaccinations, and discriminating and bullying students who are not vaccinated. Just these kind of trends that we see happening in the Canadian College of Naturopathic Medicine, which is not alone. There's other colleges too that have had this trend. And to have a merger, for me, doesn't bode well. I think it's just going to lead to more downhill departure from our true naturopathic roots. So I want to put a question out to anybody that watches this, whether live now or after the fact. Do you know anybody who is an online data expert? It's a lot of data to parse. I'm not an expert on it. I've been spending days just trying to figure out how to take the data and to publish it live and all that stuff. So yeah. Let me know. That'd be appreciated. So the number of surveys so far has been 28. And there's more has come in, but I've only used 28. The average age is 39 years old, which is interesting. I thought it might be a little younger, but no, there are mature students who go through these halls, and that's a beautiful thing. The more mature the student, the more mature the practitioner. So it's a good thing. But youth is, of course, also a wonderful time to get the students. So gender split up is, there was 19 female, 9 male, and no one has, as of yet, identified as other. So that's interesting, because that's like 2/3, 1/3, and that's a little bit more, I'd say, than the split is normally in naturopathic medicine, which is a little bit more female than male, I would say. Just from my experience, and perhaps from yours as well. So we'll see how that happens in time. If these different fields will truly represent the profession, and certainly through the colleges. So the colleges that have submitted, and the number here might be greater than the actual number of submissions, because some of the students have gone to more than one college. So Bastyr in Washington, 5, and in San Diego, 5. NUNM, NCNM 3, CCNM 5, and you see the rest: Bridgeport 2, NUHS 4, Boucher 2, SCNM 4. So it's not a bad representation across the board. It's not like all Bastyr and no CCNM or stuff like that, right? It's kind of nice, nice all over the board. The average debt per student is basically close to $200,000. And that's high, but it's not as high for some who are in 400 to 500,000. Some even, there is even a couple of people who put they were $500,000 plus in debt. And that's tremendously high. Would any of you like to comment on the debt, and in particular, what does debt do to a practitioner, do to first of all, a human being, and next, a practitioner who has to start their practice? They're coming out and you're under, mountains of debt. Anybody like to comment on that? Don't forget to, yeah, go ahead, Sierra. Thank you.
I was thinking about this today, actually. I think sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes if we're in like a lot of debt, we're coming out, we're trying to think of, someone might be trying to think of a way to make money, whereas it might not be in the best interest of the patient. And I think like constantly having to like check in on that. That's something that I want to always be checking in on. Yeah. So I think, and then also with just thinking about the interest accumulating, and it's kind of like this, I mean, it's like a hole you can't totally dig yourself out of unless you're really successful, really like soon, I would say. That's what I've kind of come to the conclusion of. So I've actually decided to pursue kind of like doing a public service loan forgiveness track, just because of how much in debt I am in. It's like more of like 400 plus.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I decided would be the best route for me. But
thank you for that information. I agree with you that when there's this huge debt, there's a pressure. You have to make money to get out of debt. And the whole system itself is corrupt. And that's not really the fault per se of the colleges. It's the fault of the system, whereby, the banks and loans and interest, the system itself is kind of corrupt. And it is, in my, philosophical assessment, it is kind of geared towards creating slavery, a kind of, you become enslaved to your debt, and you're trying to work out, you're always trying to work out from under it. It takes a very strong, disciplined mind to detach oneself from that debt and not let it rule you. But this is definitely a problem. Like if you go into practice and you are, struggling just to pay off debt, then the intention is make money to pay off debt, not practice to the highest means possible for the patient and for your own fulfillment as practitioner. Because a lot of practitioners go in, and with this pressure, this debt pressure, they end up practicing in ways that might make more money, but it's not fulfilling to them. And that's a problem for them too. So thank you for that, Sarah. Where did you graduate from, and what year was that, if you don't mind saying?
Yeah. I mean, I'm fresh. I just graduated in June from Bastyr Kenmore.
Okay, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. So you're fresh, and you also have a fresh perspective. So this is excellent. I appreciate that. Dr. Lucerne and Dr. Stevens, would either of you like to comment on the debt issue?
This is Joy. I agree with Sierra. I see that also when I look at other practitioners and just look at the field in general, that in order to serve your debt, you may not be practicing in the best interest of the patient. You may be running patients through too quickly. and to see more patients in a day to make more money. And
Mhm.
if they're doing insurance, that makes it worse because I don't take insurance, so I really can't talk intelligently about this, but my understanding is you can't do too many things in one day and still get reimbursed for it. And so
Right.
you're bringing patients back over and over. I get to spend as much time as I want with a patient and get to do whatever I want with that patient. I'm not under any time constraints. I'm not under a debt load because of the Seattle real estate market was good for me. And I got lucky that way.
Good for you.
So I'm able to practice differently than I see many of my colleagues practicing.
Right. Right.
And
That's true.
I'm able to practice, I think, how we should be versus the realities of trying to keep a roof over your head.
Absolutely. Thank
Yeah,
you. Go ahead,
um,
Dr. Eva Marie. Thanks, Dr. Stevens.
I'm glad that you can do that because so many people can't. And this debt will be sitting there and be very, very heavy burden on person unless somebody is very strong and is able to push it away and just say, oh, well, nothing I can do about it. I have to be me and I have to do things that I feel are right. So, but yes, and especially that interest accumulating over interest. Sometimes I think that mafia shark loans people should learn from the Department of Education how to lend
Right.
money
Right.
to others. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a sad but true. Sad but true. It's a bit of a dark path that hovers over, and it becomes a shadow that really can pull a person. They don't need to be, like, if they are strong enough, you don't need to be enslaved to your debt. Like Dr. Cortez, you were saying that you're going to apply for some kind of loan forgiveness program. I forget exactly what you said about that. Yeah. What was that?
Yeah, it's called a public service loan forgiveness option.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of detail to it, but it's basically working for a certain qualified employer for 10 years. And after the end of 10 years, the debt is forgiven with qualified payments. And that the money that's forgiven is non-taxable as well.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, that's very nice to have an option like that. In any case, I have a prayer in my heart that this sort of thing should end. And even if it doesn't mean literally that one's debt ends immediately, at least any suffering and any servitude, any heaviness ends for all, because it's not a nice energy to loom over. Naturopathic medicine is about healing, and it's hard to heal when you're burdened by anything, by debt, by fear, by anything that makes you not free so that the vis can flow through the practitioner in practice, right? Anything that inhibits that will be detrimental to good health, good healing in the practice. And really, we take a vow as naturopathic doctors. I don't know what it is today, if it's going to get altered, but I put up my hand, before God. And I said, I vow for the service of humanity, like, it's not just, I'm in this for that. And of course, for my own, to make money for my family, myself, to live, but to heal, to help heal people. So our profession needs to be aligned with healing. If our program is sick, if debt creates illness, then it has to be re-examined. And also, what's interesting is there are going to be more colleges that are going to pop up. And some will be in the bag of the fear-based model that has now taken a grip over naturopathic medicine, if I might say so. That's, of course, my opinion, but this is what I feel strongly. But there are others that are going to have a vision to try to reestablish us in the roots of the profession, of the true philosophy. I even engaged in that process last year. It's going to be a year and a half soon. And it was just too much. The timing wasn't right. There was a whole bunch of factors going on, COVID and supply chain problems for building, and also I was moving myself. So I put that on hold for now indefinitely. But I know I've spoken to others and they're interested in starting a new program because many have given up on the profession altogether. Many have said it's too late. There's nothing we can do. It's too late. The infiltration of whatever it is that is darkening the profession is already in full effect and it can't be stopped. I'm more of an optimist. Even in a terrible case of illness, the right prescription, the right remedy, the right dialogue, the right awareness, the right perhaps supplement or whatever can bring about a tremendous change. And so I remain hopeful. And that's why we're doing what we're doing over here. All right, so let's move on. Thank you all for your comments on that. The next criteria, or I should say data point is, was the question, do you feel the fees were fair and or understandable for the program you received? 9 said yes, and 19 said no, which is funny because that's the same ratio of female to male. I don't know if there's a correlation there. I don't think so, but maybe, who knows? We could study the psychology of this at some point in the future if we really want to. But that's a lot to say no. No, the fees weren't fair. And of course, this is subjective. Would any of you like to chime in about whatever you'd like to say about that, if they were fair or they weren't fair? I'd love to hear from you about that. We can go in the same order if you like, if it makes it simpler. If you want to, if anybody, if you want to say something, Dr. Cortez, you're welcome to boot that off.
The only thing, I would say that the fees were kind of more or less in line with an MD or DO degree, to my understanding. I think the problem that a lot of people face is that the opportunity, quote unquote, the opportunity for NDs, it's just not the same as it is for an MD or DO, where they can have a job anywhere, like at a hospital, and be able to, and then also with residencies as well. But yeah, I think the opportunity, it's one thing to be a doctor, and then it's another thing with an ND, you typically have to kind of have your own business and know how to run it. And I think that's another barrier.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you for that.
I also think that students were never really explained why tuition is going up so much every year. The popular explanation was, well, we need more money, so we're raising your fees. And that's not sustainable in life.
Yeah, I appreciate that comment deeply, because, every time I'd go back to these schools and I'd ask the students, what are you paying now per year? And the numbers were just augmenting. When the administration is a little bit akin to the government. When the government raises taxes, they have to explain why they're raising taxes. We're building a road, we're building 5 bridges across the river, we're doing this and that. They're explaining because they're supposed to solicit the people about why they're raising their tuitions. And I have had a hard time justifying in my mind or explaining it, why they're raising it so substantially. Dr. Stevens, did you want to chime in now?
Yeah, I kind of want to address both what Sierra said and what you just said. I agree with Sierra. It's like they are trying to match tuition to the MD and DO schools, yet the MD and DO schools, they have higher expenses than we did. They're training people to do body cavity surgeries and things like that. And they have more equipment and such that they're training students on. So they have more overhead. And to try, to justify that the ND school needs to match the MD school because they're both medical programs, ignores that. And then what you said about the government, I used to serve in local government, and we would have a particular group of our employees come in and say, well, we want to raise. And we'd say, well, why? And they said, well, because this city is paying, you know, their employees in this position, whether it's fire or police or whatever, they're paying their employees this. So you need to pay us that. Well, why is that city paying their employees that? Well, because another city is. And it's basically, you have a group of employees who have, you know, basically talk their city council into paying them that wage. And then everybody else looks around and says, well, me too, I want to get paid that too. But there's no private sector by which to determine if that is the correct pay rate. Because in the private sector, you give wage increases based upon the profits of the company. And in public service, it's unlimited theoretically, because you can just go back and ask taxpayers for more. And it does feel like it's somewhat like that. Yeah. We'll just ask the students for more tuition. But on the other hand, you know, at these schools, they're getting rid of the elders, and they're using students who went from high school to college to medical school to resident to supervisor. Yeah. You know, with no real life experience outside of the academics, and are using them in supervisory positions while getting rid of the elders who I'm assuming are demanding more money, or commanding, excuse me, not demanding, commanding more money. And so they're raising tuition on students, comparing it to MD schools or DO schools, which have higher overhead, and meanwhile putting in very recent grads into supervisory positions. Yeah. And altogether, that's just a perfect storm.
It is. And it's a good point. Let's say they were to justify firing elders to save money so that students could have lower tuition. That might be something that we could wrap our minds around and accept. Although the elders are the backbone of the profession. They're the ones who they're the wisdom keepers. They're the ones who have experience and any real knowledge, which is knowledge from practice. Because if you're just studying in the textbooks and you haven't gotten out into practice, you don't have really what it takes to be a supervisor or even a good teacher. And not to mention what has been taught of late. You know, there's been a general trend of sort of the sloughing off of more vitalistic modalities like homeopathy and traditional Chinese medicine. That's like they're more electives, or they're different programs now. And more with the allopathic kind of functional medicine stuff. So that's a shame that we see practitioners, and this was a lot of the voices of the people that have filled in the surveys have supported this idea, the idea that yes, we don't have teachers that have a lot of experience. That's a problem. That is a big problem. So thanks for those comments, Dr. Stevens, and other two docs. Appreciate it. Let's move on to the next point. Oh yeah, you know, it's still the same point, but basically I will share what a couple of people, other people said as well. And one of them was a 2019 grad. While CCNM was the cheapest compared to other ND schools, it was frustrating to pay $22,000 per year. Well, and that's Canadian. You know, some of you in the US might groan knowing that that's all they paid. When I was a student, the fees were at 13,000 Canadian a year. So, and that was I graduated in 2000. So 22,000 per year while being taught by fresh graduates or individuals with no experience in the field. A naturopath teaching biochemistry or physiology with no prior degree of that topic and barely able to answer questions. In addition, we had a crazy exam schedule, and the administration was aware of it, and instead of fixing it, they allowed people to pay $150 to move the exams at their leisure and had up to 1 year to do it. And then there's a complaint about Wi-Fi not working, and our clinical experience was also muted by recent grads with no actual experience in the field. That's a shame. And I just want to put something out there, because I've had a hunch that, one of the interesting things about naturopathic medicine, the colleges, is that the administration and the management of money is not transparent, right? You don't see the money funneling in and where it's being channeled. So we don't really know what's behind the scenes. We also don't know what sponsorship is coming into the college. We don't really know that. There are some donors that we can see, like I know if you go on the websites, you can see different donors, and where is that money going towards? So there's not a transparency in these colleges. And I think a college that's teaching medicine should probably be transparent in where the tuition of the students that are being taught is going. So that's my opinion. You're welcome to agree or disagree with that, and let me know if you want to. Otherwise, I can move on to the next comment. Okay. All right, we shall move on. So same question, 1981, a grad of 1981. That's great, right? That's a long time ago. Making the education, and I put this because I want to give a perspective. This survey should not just be about the downward trend of the colleges, but where the profession has come from as well, to compare then and now as well. So we can appreciate we have some things better off at the different campuses than they didn't have in the day. Like there was no infrastructure. Like they studied, a lot of the naturopaths studied in an elementary school in these little desks, and there's a blackboard, and that's all I had. And they studied, they learned, and they would go out and pick herbs and stuff like that in the wild, and it was just very low maintenance, like the way Dr. Bastyr started his practice with one like lonely light bulb hanging from his ceiling, and he had a sign on the road that said naturopath, chalk mark this way. That's how he started his practice. We've come so far from that. We're so sophisticated in some ways with marketing and social media and stuff like that, but sometimes just the simple grassroots are enough to get at the heart of something. So this is what the grad of 1981 said: making the education coherent was up to me. Scattered, strong in some areas, very weak in integrating everything, and sometimes it was the blind leading the blind. The profession had almost died, so we were picking ourselves up by our bootstraps. I was lucky and had the financial resources to do the program without having to divide my time. I think that there were no real loans back then, so everyone had to figure out on their own. That's also an interesting perspective, to be able to afford. I mean, I'm saying afford, it's not the right word, but because you have loans, you could do the program, and now you have this debt. So that does put debt in a different perspective. It enables one who wouldn't necessarily have the finances to do it. So that's good. That's good. Okay, so let's look at some other criteria here. On a scale of 1 to 10, how burnt out did you feel after you completed the program? Now, 8.2 average. That's very high. A lot of 10s, a lot of 9s, a lot of 8s. And a few were not burnt out. And I would like to study them, study the psychology of those grads and see, all right, what did you do so you weren't burnt out? Because that could be an interesting study. On a scale of 1 to 10, how prepared for practice did you feel after you completed your program? And 10 was the most prepared. The average was 4.6. And there were 2 9s in this, 2 9s. One was from 1997 at NCNM at the time, and another was from 2021 NUNM. And I find it interesting because when I'm comparing with other students at NUNM, a lot really didn't feel prepared. Like their answer would be like 2 or 3, very unprepared. So this person who basically said that they were 9 on 10 prepared, there's something unique about that person. They are governed by something else, I think, inside themselves, which is a good quality to have. And I think that all the programs, I would like to see the programs preparing students to feel prepared, not artificially, but through a sense of confidence, by teaching what principles are most important in practice so that you can embody medicine and help your students help your patients regard you as competent and ready to practice, not faking, but embodying. Now, there is the issue that when you're starting, you got to start somewhere, and that's at zero. So that's a challenge for any starting person. And there's no way to get around that except having good guidance in the clinic, so that you're really like gung-ho. And for that, you want to have elders who are telling you about their cases, these triumphant cases of serious pathology being helped by true naturopathic means, not these fear-based teachings and instructions that I kept hearing. And when I was in clinic, that's 22 years ago, I was in clinic. And that was fear-based then, and you gotta be careful if somebody has this condition, don't try to treat it, refer them to the ER. Refer them to the ER. Don't try to take it on. So the fear-based creating, that really undermines the confidence in someone. I think we need to be trained to recognize when to refer and when to tell somebody to go to the hospital, but it's not always as soon as you think. And sometimes it is, but it's not always as soon as you think. So, well, welcome the comments, please. Thank you.
This is Joy. I think what really helped me with respect to that was when one of the elders said that we're really trained just not to kill anybody. And that really put it into perspective that, that's really what our training is, and the rest of it's on us. And I already knew what area I was going to practice in. I already knew the area better than any of my supervisors did. And so when I came out, I felt a little bit more confident for those two reasons. Yes. But that really helped, knowing that, we're just trained not to kill anybody, and that we have a lot of education in front of us, and that it's really on us to go out there and get what we need to get.
Excellent.
Yeah, I agree with that, because people who know what they're going to do. And for example, in my case, last 2 years at Bastyr, outside of Bastyr education, so to speak, I took several other things that I felt is going to be more important. So the education the school provided, it was, to me, didn't have much value, but the outside education that I have chosen, because like Dr. Joy, I knew what I wanted to do, or at least I thought I knew what I wanted to do, was something that I could build up on. And the other thing is to have a good mentors. I was very, very fortunate to have people who really mentor me. So that was awesome.
That's great. Thanks, Dr. Eve Marie. That's great. I want to say something about consent, and I don't know if this is taught or this is mentioned. It could be an ethics class or just in clinic. You can talk about this, and it sort of follows in what you were saying, Dr. Joy, is that when a patient comes, you want to inform them about the possible risks, but not out of a sense of fear, just so that they're educated. Look, this is a serious condition, provided it's a serious condition. And I feel like I could help you. I really could help you if we work together and we do this and that, and it could really help you. But there is a risk that it could worsen. At that point, we can make a decision to send you to the emergency room or to stick it out. It's entirely up to you. And the patient has to have that consent. The person has to have the consent, but they also have to, as doctors, there's been a real perversion of the will of the doctor kind of imposing itself on the patient. The will of choice over medicine should always reside with the patient, 100%, unless that person is unable to fend for themselves, or the severe trauma, they're in a coma, whatever. But consent, especially in chronic illness, always lies with the person. It's not the doctor's decision, it's the patient. And patients will often talk to someone and they'll say, well, I have to ask my doctor. How many times have we heard that as practitioners? I have to ask my doctor if I can, lower the dose, or if it's not up to the doctor, it's up to the patient. And it shows you how much we have become distanced from the true empowering medicine that helps people become healed from within rather than relying on an external form of medicine. So that's one thing that I wanted to say, that when in feeling prepared or not prepared, there's some fear there, but the fear needn't be as much as if we really do give that power to the patient. And it's not giving it, it's just acknowledging it. That's where it truly lies. So that's what I wanted to say about that. Okay, so let's go on to the next point here on my little PowerPoint presentation. And it is, just after graduation, how did you feel about beginning your practice? 3 out of 28 said rearing to go, excited. 3. 8 were neutral about it, like no fear, no aversion, just neutral, like blah kind of. And 9 had an aversion to practice, and 8 had fear of beginning to practice. Dr. Sierra, where do you fall in that? Like, you're welcome to just say pass if you don't want to answer, but I'd be curious because you just graduated. So how do you feel about starting your practice now?
Yeah. Well, I said I'm more neutral, I would say. I was kind of in between neutral and aversion. But I think the reason I chose neutral is because I'm actually on another track to pursue additional training in medicine. And so that's kind of, I think, where I'm coming from, of like kind of neutral. I might be starting a telemedicine practice while I'm going to school. But yeah, I think if I was just, if I was in a state where I could just practice fully, like I'm in Florida right now. If I'm in Washington, I think where I'm just left, I think I would definitely have quite a bit of fear just starting out, especially if I didn't do residency or have some type of like in-depth mentorship, I would say. Yeah.
Like an ongoing kind of mentorship is a privilege, right?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
Dr. Joy, did you want to say something? I saw you unmuted yourself.
That's my telltale, I guess. Yeah, I was in that kind of neutral category because I was so exhausted. And I think I still am. But yeah, I wouldn't say I was excited rearing to go because I was exhausted, but I wasn't adverse to it.
Yeah.
Sierra, may I ask you what continuing education you're doing in medicine?
Yeah, so I'm going to be pursuing traditional Chinese medicine.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Lovely.
I was curious if you're going to DO school or something like that.
I've thought about everything under the sun. I came down to TCM for a beautiful reason, but yeah.
Excellent. Good for you. Good luck with that.
Thank you so much.
And one of the reasons I chose naturopathic medicine was because I went to school later in life and I did not have to do a residency, and I would not have done a residency. And that's a whole nother subject we can discuss at some time in the future, but there were reasons why I would never have done a residency. So naturopathic medicine allowed me to become a doctor where I wouldn't have been able to otherwise.
Wonderful, wonderful. And Dr. Joy, I'm sorry if I asked you this already. I've forgotten the answer. Where did you go? What school did you go to? And when did you graduate?
Bastyr Kenmore, 17.
2017. Okay, thank you. Thank you. And Dr. Eve Marie, would you like to comment at all about how you feel beginning your practice? First of all, where did you go and when did you graduate?
I started in Seattle, Bastyr in Seattle, Kenmore, and then I moved about halfway to San Diego. So I eventually graduated from San Diego. And after I got my diploma, I kind of lost interest in naturopathic medicine in practicing naturopathic medicine. And as we talked about it before, I hope it's just temporary, because exhaustion is definitely there, or was. And I was moving across the country from San Diego to Florida. So I just put everything on hold. And it will be interesting if I really develop enthusiasm for helping people with naturopathic medicine, or I won't.
Yes.
But ND was, or is, my 4th degree. I was just thinking about it before this call, that only one of those 4ths, which is homeopathy, my degree from UK, from England, that I actually practice, because it made sense to me. And especially when I had horses, it was so incredible to have homeopathy. But the rest of them, the other 2 degrees are like, so what? So it's going to be interesting for myself how I feel about practicing naturopathic medicine. It was kind of surprising for me that I feel this way, that I don't have at this point
this excitement, this rearing to go. It says a lot about what's happening after the profession. Now, a lot of this is subjective. Each of you is your own individual person. You all have your own, I want to call it karmic lessons that you're going through, issues that you're facing, past history, growing up, childhood traumas. We all have our different stuff that we take with us. So it's very unique. But that's why when we get data from multiple people, we start to see trends. We're looking for trends, and that's what I'm very interested in. Also hearing personal stories, like your own stories right now. Dr. Sierra, if I might ask, I'm curious about the fear in practice. Would you speak to that for a moment? What you'd be afraid of in beginning practice?
Well, I think this has been said definitely before. I felt we were, particularly at I guess I can speak only for my school, but it was kind of like this training of the in-between, of like in between vitalism, like our roots, and then conventional medicine. And so I feel like I was trained somewhere in the middle. And the fear comes with, okay, I know that I want to like practice more vitalistic medicine, but I don't feel like I have, it sounds, it's like sad when I think about it, like, but I just feel like I don't have the tools that I need to be able to do that effectively for people and confidently is the real issue. Like, so I think, that confidence just isn't there. And, when you look at the residency options, it's like, I was someone who truly was talking to the residency director my first year. That's how excited I was about residency. But then as I go on, I'm like, okay, all these residencies are largely kind of geared toward more of like this conventional side of things, rather than the vitalistic side. And so that kind of, I was like, well, that's not what I want. So yeah, I think that fear there of like, okay, I have this beautiful responsibility to be a teacher, to carry on the knowledge that I've gained, but that confidence of just like seeing vitalistic medicine transform people's lives, I just didn't see it enough while in school.
Right. Absolutely. That's a very important point. Thank you for sharing. I think that answer that hit me deep. You said, it's sad. When I think about it, if I don't have the tools I need to be effective and to practice confidently, the vitalistic aspect. The allopathic aspect, I think you can have more natural inherent confidence in because it's a this for that medicine. All you got to do is do a search online or open up a book, look at your notes, and you just put your finger, you say, oh, that's what I have to do, this for that, right? And I see you really like, you're like nodding your head and you're agreeing. So when we start lack of confidence, when we start with lack of confidence, which is natural in any beginning of any profession or or job or anything. But then there's also this unpreparedness thing. So if we're not prepared and we lack confidence, we're going to default towards the prescription for symptoms and conditions rather than for real naturopathic diagnosis, real naturopathic holistic, treating the cause, treating each person as an individual and the different principles that we get. I'm pretty astounded, maybe I'm a little bit used to it now. Unfortunately, it's one of those things you don't want to get desensitized to, but all the discussion groups of naturopathic doctors online, it's like, I have a patient with psoriasis, what do I give? I have a person with ulcerative colitis, what's the best supplement out there? What do you give? It's all just green allopathy. And there is some functional medicine there, but that's still giving something for an organ system. And there's no root cause diagnosis. There's no consideration of the mental and emotional field, at least very little. And that's a huge trend. So that's an unfortunate aspect that we're seeing in the profession now. And yeah, that's too bad. So it looks like I have somebody coming in late here. Why not? We're always welcome. We're always welcome late to the party.
Yes.
Yeah. Hi, Dana. Good to see you. If you feel comfortable, you can launch your video, and also if you can unmute yourself when you're ready to say hello. Take your time, and when you're ready, I'll jump in and ask you a question when I see you're prepared. So thank you for coming. You're always welcome late to the party. And so we were just finishing up talking about how did you feel about practicing when you graduated? And Dr. Sierra really brought a few amazing points there. And Dr. Eve Marie, you also graduated recently, so your perspective is very fresh. And Dr. Stevens, thank you as well. Hi, Dr. Dana, how are you?
Hi, I'm good, and I'm super glad to be here. And actually, I was listening only. I wasn't on the Zoom. I couldn't figure out how to get on the Zoom, and Joy got me on. So.
Oh, great! Well done, Joy. You're multitasker over here.
Yeah, I put the word out in a couple of Telegram threads that we were in together. So I'm like, okay, I think that's Joy.
Well, good. So I'll be happy to hear from you. If and when you're ready to comment on one of the topics that we're talking about, feel free. Just chime in. You can unmute yourself and then get going.
I can comment on this question.
Oh yeah, because you've been listening. You're just not here. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I guess after graduation, I was excited. I was raring to go. And I joined a practice with an old timer. I will keep him unnamed at this moment, but I was really excited to do that, for the opportunity to do that. And as it turns out, he was, I'm sort of putting my brain into the scenario. I'm not exactly sure. I'm kind of speaking for what I think happened, but
Yeah.
He was less than comfortable with mentoring me in women's health, which is what I was hired for. And so when I started to see some pretty extreme pathology, I think I went to him for some mentorship, and literally stepped out of the room a couple times and asked for his eyes literally on, what I was seeing, to make sure that I knew what I was seeing. And the long story short with that experience was I ended up extricating myself from the contract with that experience. Because he wasn't prepared, willing, or able in whatever ways to do that for me. And it was only at that point that I won't say that I had fear, but I had there was a pulling back of like, wow, I'm less prepared than I thought. Right. And it didn't make me fearful, but it did make me aware that how I wanted to practice was very different than how he was practicing, in that he was in an insurance model. And so I believe that that was part of the issue. He was seeing more advanced pathology than I ended up seeing later by extricating myself from that.
Sure.
But anyway, it
Where did you graduate from? Where did you graduate from?
NCNM 09.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And so that put me in an entirely different direction in my practice. I'm thankful for it in some ways, in that I was cash from that moment on. But on the other hand, I always felt behind the 8 ball with certain things. Some of that real extreme pathology was one. And the other was that I think I was the last year, at least at my school, that didn't do anything with EMR. And so I graduated, left, and then it was like we were in this world of EMR. And the years after that, we're doing that, but it was just not part of it. So I had to learn all that on my own while I was practicing on my own. So it was like pulling by the seat of my pants, I think, just trying to figure all that stuff out on my own. And being in Connecticut, I didn't have a lot of colleagues that I felt were able to kind of put our heads together. It wasn't like in Portland, where I was in school, to just like, throw a stone, you'd hit 5 naturopaths' offices. In Connecticut, it wasn't like that.
Right. All right. Well, thanks for sharing. That's a very, very interesting. Get another person's perspective of graduating. You're sort of like at 2009, NCNM was different than it is today, but it was not so much like in 1985.
Right.
It's a little more recent. And it does again make you wonder, like there's such high tuition. To be unprepared for practice is a strange problem for having put so much money in the degree. I think about homeopathy, and I was like the very first class that I had, I was madly in love with homeopathy. And I really probably studied homeopathy 90% of the time, and 10% was for everything else in the program. I would just had my homeopathy books open everywhere, and then I would just like glance at my pathology differential diagnosis notes and like, oh, okay, and then back to homeopathy. But even though I studied so much, it's another thing to start practice. You get these cases and you're like, I have no idea what to do here. No idea. So having some kind of ongoing mentoring is I think, a necessity. At least for those first few years when you start to gain your own confidence, So this is such an interesting discussion. I'm really grateful for all of your presence and for this. So interesting. Dr. Joy, did you want to say something now?
Yes, please. I want to follow up on something Sierra said about feeling like she was, caught in the middle between true vitalism and allopathic medicine.
Yes.
I felt it was kind of a bait and switch. I went into naturopathic medical school, thinking that green allopathy was what naturopathic medicine was all about. And then I get to first year and then I learn all about this vitalism stuff. And it was like, oh, wow, this is pretty cool. And then as soon as you get to clinic, it's back to green allopathy. And so it really felt like, they baited us in first year with all this, wonderful vitalism. And then, yeah, that was just first year, forget about it,
Yeah, it's like paying it lip service, but it's not, there's not really an embodiment of that in clinic. So
correct.
I mean, I don't know. I'll say this. I don't want to necessarily put this on any of you to have to say this if you're thinking it. Maybe you're not even thinking it, but I really do think that there has been an external corruption of the program. Influences by big pharma. We could probably take a guess it's big pharma. Who knows what else? That has actually had this agenda to to turn the programs into green allopathy. And it's, you know, you might just say, well, that's just the business model. That's always been in the AMA and the big pharma is like, it's a business model. You don't want competition, and people are paying billions of dollars, statistics show, out of pocket for naturopathic doctors. So we gotta, you know, corner that market now. So maybe it's just a business choice, but I don't think it's a very nice one. In any case, there's been a corruption of the system, and the bait and switch, you know, that's kind of dishonest. It's to not have any follow-up, not any follow-through. Naturopathic medicine is there's a vast way of practicing it, many different colors, many different ways, and all are beautiful. But there are principles that make our medicine. And when we don't follow those, we're doing a disservice and a dishonest bait and switch kind of thing. Excellent way of expressing it, Dr. Joy. Thank you. So let's go on, and there's a couple more slides I'd like to just go through, and that offers some opportunity for discussion. And so the next slide is on average, scale 1 to 10, how likely would it be for you to recommend your college to people expressing interest in the profession? And the average was 3. That's low. You know, that's very dismal. That's a dismal number. Oh, I have another latecomer coming in. Maybe they also figured out how to get on it. Awesome. Okay. I'll just give Dr. Anna Marie a second to load up here. So that says a lot. You know, there were these 2 people that were really gung-ho that recently filled in the survey, and they were like, yeah, rearing to go, 9 on 10 for readiness and 9 on 10 for enthusiasm, and they're all up there. So they brought the average up a little bit. But the average is low for whether you recommend your college. And that says a lot. You know, the people speak, and we're listening now. So hi, Dr. Anna Martin. Welcome. Thanks for coming to this. Are you there?
Oh, yes, of course. Of course. Sorry, I'll mute myself.
Oh, yeah, no, that's okay. You're welcome to chime in. I'll ask you if you want to comment on anything, and feel free to unmute when you want to say something. Dr. Anna, where did you graduate and what year?
Bastyr, 2017.
All right. Bastyr, Washington or San Diego?
Washington.
Okay, thank you. Good to know. All right, so that's the average of how likely it is. And that's, you know, I hate to say this, but I've turned people away because I'm a pretty honest person. If you haven't gathered that, I pretty much say what I feel, sometimes to my detriment. But I've been very honest with people when they've asked me about the profession, asked me about certain schools. And I so badly want to say, I love the profession. I love our profession. And that's true. That remains true. I love us. I love naturopathic doctors. I love our philosophy. I love our history. I don't love our colleges. It's hard for me to want to recommend the profession for that reason. So if any of you have anything to say about that, about recommendations and stuff, please don't hesitate. You can chime in now.
I can speak to that.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I've had many people along the way ask me excitedly, oh, can you tell me about the profession? Can you know, what's it take? What's it like? And they were all excited to go through. And I honestly, 100% against my will and volition, really had to say that I, for the most part, wouldn't recommend it unless there was a couple caveats, unless they were brand new to the profession. I know that's weird. I'll explain it. And unless they either had enough money to not take loans or had someone financing it so that they wouldn't have to take loans. The reason I say,
if they're new,
the reason I told them that it would be maybe okay if they were new to this whole world is that I was far from new. I had been studying herbal medicine and nutrition and things since I was a teenager on my own, and then did several herbal apprenticeships and had pretty much that philosophy kind of built in. And so when I started, I did start at Bridgeport and transferred over to NCNM. So I started and I spent a lot of time with Dr. Sensenig, and it felt like home. It was like, wow, this is amazing. And then when other doctors of the old timers came in, it was, this is amazing. This feels like so, integrally part of where I should be going, where I should be. But when I would get these questions about going into it after graduating, it was really hard to recommend, because I feel like without having had I can't live it both ways, but if I didn't have the background that I had, I might have been more excited to go through the program. I know that's kind of weird. It's kind of backwards, but I already had some really good background, and there were experiences that I had where I knew the teacher was literally wrong, like completely wrong, and walked out of classes and straight to the dean to be like, so what do you think about this?
Yeah.
Not to tattle, but because I knew that my money, it was when I was at Bridgeport, and I was like, my money, I can't be paying for this. And and I ended up saying, look, if I have to be in this class, I'll be in the library and I'll study it on my own. I just can't participate. And so
was part of the reason also the fact that those amazing teachers that you had, like Dr. Sensenig and Dr. Paul, I don't know if Paul Epstein.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So these great teachers, and then they're kind of fired. Some of them are fired. Is that part of the reason too, that the elders were being fired?
Yeah, the elders were gone, and Bill Mitchell passed away, and eventually Dr. Sensenig was gone long after. But all of these old timers were gone, and there was no real cement inside the schools. Like, you could go and find it, but within the schools it wasn't there. And it seemed to be more about trying to emulate an allopathic program. And so I felt like if someone had no background whatsoever, they would, quote, learn maybe some remnants of the philosophy and could be excited about it and might get value. For me, I didn't feel I got the value that I could then wholeheartedly recommend it.
Right.
Now, that being said, you can get value from anything, right? You can apply yourself, but for the money that it cost, that was the problem. Yeah. As a second career, having spent that kind of money, I'm still not scraped out of it. Like, it's just, it's exhausting.
What year did you graduate again?
2009.
Oh yeah, you said so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Short-term memory problem.
No, that's okay.
Okay. Thanks, Dr.
Anyway,
David.
so that's about it. Yeah.
Thank you. So good. Yeah. Anybody else about recommending? You want to make any comments, or we could always go on to the next topic here too.
I have some comments on that.
Yeah,
I think it's a little bit hard for me to recommend our profession for several reasons. One, not only are we completely conforming, but the way the board, at least at Bastyr, is run is definitely not naturopathic by any means. And so I'm having a really hard time with like the administration and kind of, I know our culture in general has changed quite a bit just as a nation. But definitely there's always been problems with that board. So I spent my naturopathic career, and some people I think on this call know that, but at least academically, I spent it trying not to get expelled for either bringing other providers in or bringing elders in or doing all sorts of things that, you would think would be an amazing asset to the college. And instead, I was having to run scared constantly from egos and, it was just really, really crazy. So while I think there is kind of like a double-edged thing going on, where some of it, is kind of okay, when it comes to at a naturopathic medical school, you will definitely have more free range to do like independent research studies if you're so motivated to do so, right? Like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to do a lot of, just things that I wouldn't have been able to do at a conventional medical school where things are more set in stone, or developed, in that kind of way. I will say that it's also terrifying when these boards are trying to make money. That is what they are there to do. And it's kind of almost like the Caribbean med schools where they're just trying to like crank out these degrees and they don't really care about the content anymore. And so I think that has been a huge problem. And so I'm in a DO school right now, just for financial reasons so that I can take Medicare eventually, because I work with a lot of Alzheimer's patients and things like that as well. But long story. But I'm in a DO school and all these students, oh, I thought about going into naturopathic medicine, and like, they're so excited, right? Because they want functional medicine. They want traditional naturopathy, not like we are selling it today. And that's why a lot of them choose to go DO. And I just always tell them, and all I can say is like, look, if you still want to do it after you get your DO, at least there's reciprocity. So that's the thing. Like, people go in and they don't know that there's no reciprocity. They don't know that if you want to do something else, you can't. They don't know how to run businesses, or that they will need to be entrepreneurs when they graduate. There is no system set up to teach business, at least where I was from. At Bastyr, the business classes were a joke. Half of them were run by someone who wasn't even making it financially in the industry, why on earth, and I love the person who was doing it. And the other half were run by someone who was, a cash-based practitioner that practiced mainly on the weekends, and did fairly well. But again, that is not the model that most people are going to be able to follow. So I think, without the business background, without understanding that you really are going to have to go into this, not as a doctor who's going to come out and make a ton of money, there's got to be a way for someone to kind of like really be faced with that in the beginning instead of learn it halfway through or when they graduate. And I think there's no like transparency there with the schools. I think there's a lot of like, I was reading, are any of you on the forum that talks about like student loan forgiveness? There was a really cool post, which I thought was hilarious, that talked about, different ways that you could get your loans forgiven because of, what the schools do during like when they're trying to recruit you, right? Whether it be, kind of trump up the like how hard it is admissions wise and things like that. And I will send it. I will put it on here, Dana. But what I found interesting is that when I entered Bastyr, because I came in with the class of 2012 and didn't graduate till 2017 because I did a lot of research and things like that. And I have 7 kids, whatever. So what is?
By the way, I have 7 kids. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, there you go. So what I found interesting is when I was being recruited, they used like practices that are just interesting, like how hard it was to get in. I mean, I heard this from the people who were like interviewing me. I think they accepted every single flipping person. I don't think there was like really a standard.
Yeah, I
just
agree.
Yeah. And so that for me is really hard because that is, to me, fraudulent. At the time, it used to say on the website that we were like internationally recognized. That got taken down by somebody, obviously, because it's not true. So we aren't listed with organizations where your credits could be transferred or do anything else with. And I know that a lot of people don't go into naturopathic medicine to do something else with that degree, but some people do. So I think having that transparency is so incredibly important. Knowing that you're going into a program that doesn't really teach a lot of traditional naturopathy unless you go seek it out, because I that's what I did. I had to go seek it out. And then having students who were just so, blatantly unaware of business practices is huge. Yes. Like they fall flat on their faces. So that has been really interesting to watch a lot of my colleagues just struggle.
Wow. Thanks, Dr. Anna. You said so many things in there that are really vitally important. One of the things like you made, for me, you just made a connection also between this overshadowing, like the debt, and when you go into practice and you're overshadowed by the need to make money. And here the administration and the way that these colleges have been set up more recently than traditionally is to make money. So it becomes a profit oriented school. So they're interested in primarily money, not teaching naturopathic medicine. And therefore, like you said, with the screening process, this is something I wrote in my book, Revolution of Naturopathic Medicine, that I published in 2004, is that the screening process needs to be thorough. But if you know, medical schools are taking one person for every 20 to 30 applicants, and we're taking every single applicant, there's no screening process there. Therefore, all they're interested in is not quality of practitioner, but the money that comes in per head, per student. And that is just simply wrong for the ultimate goal of producing good naturopathic doctors. That's what I wanted to say. So thank you for that. Dr. Joy, please.
I don't know that they're taking everyone, but I know that there's always places open. Someone that graduated with Anna and I, well, that started with me and graduated with Anna and I, was admitted a week before school started. But I don't know who's getting turned down. You know, so
I don't think anybody is getting turned down. I know a little bit more about the administration, at least at Bastyr, and had some insider unfortunate information. And because their numbers are dropping so low, especially as of late, they're taking everybody.
Okay. But then like Anna was talking about business classes and such, you know, being taught by somebody without business experience. You know, one real good example is jurisprudence was not taught by an attorney, but was taught by someone who knew an attorney. And, you know, that's a cost savings, right? You know, we can hire this person to teach it less than we can hire an attorney. And there were things that were done that were said incorrectly.
Yeah.
And I knew it.
Good. Another good point.
Well, and they're getting rid of the elders to replace sorry for jumping in. They're getting rid of the elders to replace them with, you know, people who have done their like 2-year residency or whatever at Bastyr Clinic. And now they're somehow experts in naturopathic medicine, which just also blows my mind. Like,
that's a big problem. We did discuss that a little bit before. And I also mentioned, Dr. Anna, that there's a lack of transparency, and you're talking about the lack of transparency, which is a big problem in I think, a medical profession. So a medical school, but having insider information is actually, I think, of great value. I want to pick your brain at some point. I want to know, don't answer this right now because Dr. Dana has her hand up. I want to hear from her, but I want to just put this on the record. I want to know how the funds that come in from tuition and from donations from, let's say, big pharmaceuticals and nutraceutical companies, et cetera, how that's distributed. If you have an inside information of that, I've been wanting to know that for a long time. So think about that, and let me hear from Dr. Dana for a sec here.
Yeah, I actually have a similar curiosity about that. And Eve Marie, if you can, I don't know if you guys talked about this before I started listening, but if you could maybe speak to the shift that has happened in the COVID years, what you see administratively, and if and how that shift has happened in the admin and selection process.
Well, I agree with everybody here that I don't think Bastyr turned anybody did not accept people. Everybody who applied was accepted to my knowledge. But COVID was interesting because it's my understanding that about 100 students left when Bastille decided to enforce COVID vaccinations in school. And they didn't have to, it's private school. They just chosen to do that. So suddenly, I'm sorry, Dr. Moshe.
I'm sorry. I'm just, yeah, that's strange that it's private. They're not forced to it. So they're in doing such, they are backing it even scientifically, saying this will be effective. And they're still backing it, even though it has been so obvious now that the data has come in that it's ineffective and it's harmful in many cases, and there's not much positive effect for it, but they're still backing it. So that's strange. In brackets. Go ahead, Eve Marie. Continue, please.
So suddenly, because Bastille enforced vaccination one way or another, or you have to get very crazy process if you didn't get vaccinated, and checking and testing and so on. And not only enrollment went down those COVID years, but also over 100 people left. Yeah. Suddenly there was no or less money, at least, or no money. And, yes. And administration was pathetic. I mean, it was so scared. Yeah. And, you know, even there was not enough money to, at Bastille in Seattle, on Kenmore campus, to have 2 maintenance people. By law, they required to have 2 to run heating and air conditioning, stuff like that. It was only 1 because they didn't have the money. So they were breaking the law. Okay. So I don't know if that answered your question, but it was it got worse.
Thank you. Let's move on a little bit. There's a few more topics I'd like to cover, and we're getting on in hours here. I don't mind going a little bit longer. That's fine with me, and I just don't want this to be like the longest marathon ever. So let's go on to the next topic. The next topic is on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you think your college held true to naturopathic philosophy? And just talking and hearing everybody, it's low, right? It's low. The 10 is the highest that really held true. And that was more true in the past and less true as time has progressed. So if we looked at the holding true over time, it has declined. Where the philosophies, I think when the schools were a ragtag bunch, you know, just trying to string together a few classes and, you know, not more than that, but it was more held true to the philosophy. So that's interesting. On a scale of 1 to 10, how approachable, welcoming, and accommodating were administrators? 4.8. Some comments were, well, they were very welcoming, and they would nod and smile, but then they wouldn't do anything about it. Quite a few comments about that. And that was my experience with administration. You could book a time and speak to the president at the time and get a good meeting, and you felt heard and listened to, but nothing happened. So that's that. On a scale of 1 to 10, how approachable, welcoming, and accommodating were the professors? And this is higher, and I would expect it to be higher because the professors are hopefully naturopathic doctors, and they're real people, and they're not subject to whatever's going on in administration. You know the expression power corrupts, you know. So there was a beautiful, wonderful, beautiful hearted person that was an instructor when I was there, and she became the head of the clinic and completely changed her personality. Completely, it changed her entirely. And something took a hold of her, and maybe it was the stress of clinic director. I don't know what it was, but she just changed entirely from being very, I would say, heart-based to very controlling and dictatorial and unkind. So there's some kind of energy behind the administrative process that takes a hold of people, and that's an illness in the institution that would need to be addressed if we were going to have healthy institutions. Dana, can I read your comment? Yep. So Dana wrote, at NCNM, there were teachers that had cliques with students. It was hard to get into learn directly from them. Maybe it had to do with transferring in. Possibly, yeah. Okay, so yeah, I found, I had a lot of really good teachers when I was at CCNM. I loved the teachers there. I got so much out of them. Some of them were elders and they've been fired since or left because of the sort of this one-track mind between the dean and the president to really just ensure that naturopathic medicine looks exactly like conventional medicine. Nothing is different, so that we're not judged by the people. But this is so weird because the people don't want that. The people that want conventional medicine aren't going to go to naturopaths anyway. They're going to go to conventional medicine. But the people that want healing and natural medicine are going to go to naturopaths. So it's a fear that doesn't make a lot of sense. Okay, so what did you like the most about the program? 1997 NCNM grad. Also, this is quite a few years ago. Great professors, love the ND philosophy, like the balance of practical skills to theory. I like the balance of basic science and mainstream medicine to alternatives like homeopathy, energy work, and herbal medicine. I love the camaraderie of classmates. Despite being in a class of 60, we bonded well and got along well for the most part. And then there's like extracurricular stuff that they loved. And I love that too. I love going out for dinner with students, and we would go to a Chinese buffet and we would load up on digestive enzymes that we had just learned about in nutrition class. And then we'd have to take more enzymes halfway through so we could keep eating to get the most out of this all-you-can-eat buffet. Fun, beautiful memories like that of my program, which is what a lot of people said they loved about the program, was the people, was the students, like their classmates. That was always beautiful for me. What did you like the most? In 2019, Bastyr San Diego grad, I learned a lot about myself, health, life, philosophy, consciousness, modalities of healing, met incredible people. My favorite class was mind-body medicine with biofeedback. I wonder why I chose that one. I don't know. That's probably a coincidence why I chose that comment. Okay, and what did you like the least about the program? I'm just going to read these. There's a couple more here. But I wouldn't mind, I'd love to hear from you as well. Forget about the time. Time is an illusion anyway, right? Let's just talk, say what we have, and whatever, we'll get through if we get through. So what we loved about the program, what do we love about the program? Anybody like to comment about that? It's okay if you go, yeah, go ahead, Dr. Anna Martin, please. Thank you.
So there's a lot of stuff I loved about the program, quite honestly. For me, I had really, really great relationships with instructors, but that was because I worked on that. So I think in any school or medical school, I've been in a couple medical schools, so I can speak to this, whether it's conventional or regular. Kind of like the DO, I've been in an MD program, so I've kind of been in all of them, right? And you have to build these relationships and you have to seek them out. So I think if you just expect all your professors to be great professors and want to write you recommendation letters, that's a little like mythical. You have to build relationships. So you can have great teachers and you can build those relationships and you can choose to build them. So that's what I did. And I ended up with, really, really, really great relationships that I still have to this day and will always have with teachers who really cared about teaching, who some of them have since been fired. So like, what are you going to do? But yeah, so that is what I loved about the program. And I also loved my fellow students.
Great. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. So cool. Let's go into, there's a lot of juicy stuff in what I like the least about the program. There's so many great comments. I really just parsed through and just grabbed a couple, no real direction that I have. I'm just grabbing a few that are interesting comments that speak to the trends, So what did you like least about the program? A 2022 CCNM grad, the fear about practicing, which was especially made manifest during COVID. My school was terrified to do anything. Oh, hang on a sec. Let me share my screen again. That's better like that. This. Do you see what you like least about the program now? Okay. So my school was terrified to do anything during that time, afraid of retribution from the community government. You know, honestly, that was one of the main reasons why I started NDs for Truth. There was just so little truth being spoken during the time of COVID. Naturopaths felt gagged. There were actually legal sanctions by Kono against anybody who was suggesting anything possibly for COVID, including vitamin C and vitamin D, which is clearly established in scientific literature widely, but we didn't have the expertise to comment about COVID. It was beyond the scope of our practice. That's what Kono was saying. That was their stance. So I don't know where they get this, but that was terrible. This fear percolates throughout the program. We can't talk about X because of the conventional medical industry. True healing cannot occur when there is fear. I really like that comment. I appreciate it a lot. What did you like least about the program? 2019 Bastyr, San Diego. Did not feel inspired most days and became incredibly burnt out and depressed. The healing power of nature was talked about, but not held or experienced within the school. Our school didn't have the same caliber of teachers. Most of our teachers were relatively new doctors. That's a good comment. What did you like least about the program? NUHS 2020. It was set up to model the allopathic and, in my opinion, a broken system of medicine. When you're introducing a new system of medicine with completely different philosophy, you can't teach it to be a version of the system being replaced. In my opinion, the program should focus less on diagnosing conditions that are essentially theoretical, even though our healthcare system recognizes them as fact. It should focus more heavily on mind, body, soul of the patient rather than fitting the patient into a mold. For example, the terrain theory versus germ theory, explaining why some people have susceptibility and others do not. There was this sort of like this strange philosophy that started to percolate, to spread through through our own field of doctors, naturopathic doctors, that if you mentioned something like diet or terrain around COVID, there was this term that came up that was called COVID shaming. I don't know if you ever heard of that. I just was flabbergasted by this, like how by actually embracing the philosophy of our medicine, by saying, well, people can actually be empowered to protect themselves, that was considered a way of shaming somebody for getting sick. And I just think that we're really confusing certain things with other things when we do that. So that's an example. This was a great comment here. One last comment about what did you like least? A student that hadn't graduated from CCNM yet, the admin, staff, disorganization, and darkness running that place. Very, very toxic environment. Not the first time I've heard that. I've experienced it myself. Unfortunate. It's just very unfortunate, all this stuff. So any amongst yous that would like to talk just in general about what you really didn't like in the program? I know that we've given a chance to voice certain specific places, but you're welcome to chime in about other things that you didn't like about the program.
Is this being recorded?
It is being recorded. Yes, it goes to YouTube live where it's recorded. And then I put it onto my website. Yes.
Okay, so I have some maybe offline comments. I was sitting on the board when this all happened, and I was responsible for all the COVID messaging, which was horrific. So I have some insight to what happened in Washington State and why a lot of the stuff did occur.
Before you say anything, Dr. Anna, before you say anything, are you okay with me recording? Is it okay that you're saying this live?
I'm just going to say this and then say that, I can talk to you offline about what I think kind of happened because I think it would be wrong for me to state that in a public forum, since a lot of it had to do with like just logistics of things that happened and occurred, I think, and kind of the downhill thing that happened when we didn't get clear direction from the state, and how people thought they could step in and things of that nature.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that. I'd love to hear your offline comments. So yes, let's definitely get together and chat. And you know, I will keep that private. I won't publish your information, but it will be helpful for me to answer some questions. That would be great. So Dr. Joy, would you like me to read what you just wrote?
Sure.
Okay. So Dr. Joy wrote, I was told I was turned into the Department of Justice by another ND. Not sure why the DOJ was chosen, but knowing who supposedly did it, I believe it to be true. I hated that we were drinking from a fire hose all the time and there wasn't time to actually learn. That is such a good point. So much information coming through, like we were in so many classes, so much information. And there's subtleties, like the subtleties are the most important aspects, I think, of the knowledge, is that you get subtleties by really being immersed in a topic. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to do a kind of an immersive program for a new school that I had been developing, which is on hold, where you do one subject at a time. So you do homeopathy for 3 months straight. That's all you would study. And then you'd study nutrition. It's all you would study. And you just become very immersed, and there's no distractions, and then there's no conflicting information and all this, like you're just not, you're inundated. And also I think you just can't help but shut down. It's like you get into a Cali-Foss state. When you're so inundated with information, your brain just goes, huh? And you're just in survival mode. It's very stressful. It's not a natural way of learning, and it's not an effective way of learning. So really good point of that. And I know that it's unfortunate. It's almost like this is not just in our profession. It's in the world at large. Like it's almost like Nazi Germany, where family members were telling on family members. Citizens, neighbors were telling where, the Jews are over there, or whatever they were after, and telling on people. It's sort of, I've heard other stories about that. So this is very unfortunate that in some cases people do, when they're afraid, they are susceptible to the control of different agendas. And this is like, looking back at COVID, you could really see the agenda that has been going through. Anyway, that we don't have to get too much into COVID itself, because there's been lots of talk about that. But I like to keep it to the discussion of the colleges. I want to just bring one more slide, and then that is the end of the slideshow, and then we could just discuss freely. And that is this last question. How was your clinic experience? So there were lots of comments about not enough patients, not enough follow-ups of patients over time, too many number deadlines, you have to just fulfill this quota. The supervisors were too allopathic. The supervisors didn't have enough experience, and they were bullying as well and intimidating. And yeah, so that's that. That was about the clinic. Those are some of the comments. And there's other information too that the surveys have been granting, but I didn't get into those. I didn't really have the time to prepare it, and I just picked and choose certain interesting topics. So that concludes about the information, what we've gotten from others in the survey, and you are all here to discuss this in a sort of live fashion. So feel free to share, to just jump in, and if there's anything on your heart that you feel comfortable sharing, then we certainly can. So Dr. Anna said she had to go, and I think we just lost Dr. who just left also. Thanks, Dr. Anna, for coming. Thanks for dropping some really powerful statements there. And oh, it was Dr. Sierra that had to go. So thanks for coming. Go whenever you had to. We'll just wind down, and we could just have a little chit chat for a couple of minutes, and then we could end. I appreciate all your presence and taking time out of your busy schedules to bring some light to this this topic. My hope is that it's going to put pressure on the colleges. I'd like to see the colleges get pressured to change for the better, because if they make the correlation, so let's say the bottom line still remains money, but they make a correlation between poor education and lack of enrollment, which equals lack of money, well, then maybe there's some pressure there to improve the situation, if for no other reason than to bolster the income again, which is not the best reason, but yeah, Dr. Anna, just drop me your email. Send me an email. You could send it here through chat, and we'll try to set something up. Be curious to hear what you have to say on a private note. And I appreciate the fact that this is recorded, this is public. You don't want to say anything that's going to incriminate you or anything like that. Nothing that anybody has said tonight is of that nature. We're just sharing our experiences. There were only names mentioned where it had to do with positive influence of good teachers, of elders, and things like that. So that's fine. Yes, excellent. So good. Anyway, I can feel the energy sort of wrapping up here. People are going. I just want to thank everybody for being here. And honestly, please, if I do want to invite you, because this is part of the tradition of NDs for Truth. If there's any last words of wisdom, if any of you want to speak any last words of wisdom, please do. And just simply unmute yourself, and I'll call your name when I see that. Dr. Joy, please start. And thank you.
Oh, I didn't realize I was unmuted. That's okay.
Yeah, I just like right when I said that, unmute your microphone, it just unmuted. Maybe there was something involved with that. So please go ahead.
Yeah, there must have been, because I didn't touch a keyboard.
Oh, how funny. Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to thank everybody for being here, both in person and those listening, and want to encourage those that are listening to go ahead and join in on this. And we'd love to have you as part of the conversation. I think everybody's experiences, as you said, are different, but are all valuable in trying to sort all of this out. So I hope we can get more perspectives.
Yes, thank you. And please do refer people to take the survey. That's the information that comes from that is, I think, is going to be very informative and very helpful, because the numbers don't lie. You could just see what's there, what people are saying, especially if the more people, the more you get to see trends. So that'll be excellent. Do refer those people. And Dr. Dana, if you please.
Yeah, I just wanted to first say thanks. I'm grateful for this conversation. I don't know how I missed. I don't know. I thought I was on your email list, so I don't know how I wasn't able to get on the Zoom directly. So I want to make sure that I have that schedule and also access to the actual survey, because I didn't see that either.
Okay, yeah. If you're on the list, the only reason that it wouldn't work is if there was a typo in your email. So I'll have to make myself a little note.
I don't know, because I don't remember getting any message directly about this. It was through the forums that I found the link. And so I jumped on, but then I was on the Zoom. It said live, but it looked like just a listen only. It wasn't part of the interactive Zoom.
Oh, so maybe that was a former post, an earlier post, because I did start posting more recently the Zoom link for the live. Anyway, you got on, you're here, you dropped some good know-how and some good wisdom, and that's good. So thank you. And another way you can get on the list is, okay, there you go. Thank you. I'll put you both on there. Okay, perfect. That's good.
Yeah, great. Thank you much. And I'll see you guys next time.
I'll see you guys next time. Take care. God bless.
Bye-bye. You too. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, Dana. It's good to see your face.
Okay. Bye, Dr. Anna. Bye, Dr. Joy. And bye, Dr. Eve Marie. Thank you very much for showing up. I truly appreciate it. And I'll see you soon, hopefully.
Thank you for doing this.
It's my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Joy.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Good night. Bye.